Okay. Peter was just informing me he's read all of Churchill's books on the side
Not
part.
all of them,
All of
most of
them.
them, some of them. I've read the World War Two and World War One ones, and Marlborough.
Do
Definitely
you
read
remember
Marlborough.
his quote on US envoys about the second in
No, I can't. I don't
I'm
have a photographic
assuming,
memory.
I mean, if we know, we could probably fill it in. We're missing we're debating this because in the 2020 paper, they've redacted one of the sources because they don't have the copyright to it. It's Churchill explains his view to US envoys about delaying the opening of a second front in Northern Europe. I guess it was him saying we need to do it because we can't win this war and we can't do it. And we should prioritize the Mediterranean, given the dates. But as we don't have it, we can't really work with it. So we got this one. We've got three sources on this one. So I don't know whether the source B would have been the best source or not, but we'll work with the three we've got. Assume if they're all rubbish, then that probably was the best source. Using these, but it's from Churchill, so it's probably not. Using these four sources in their historical context, assess how far they support the view that Churchill was a skilled military advisor and strategist during the Second World War. So I'll read A,
Yeah.
you do C and D then. So source A, a senior military commander expresses his view about Churchill's military outlook. The Prime Minister thought that because a comparatively small number of mounted Boers had held up a British division in 1899 or 1900 during the Boer War in South Africa, it was necessary for the South African Brigade under my command to have more equipment than rifles before taking the field in 1940. Winston's tactical ideas had to some extent crystallized at the South African War of 1899. Field Marshal Wavell, letter 1950.
I like that one. That's funny.
Yeah.
All right, James. So
So
yeah,
C for you, because we don't have B, we're missing B, but we can kind of guess what Churchill would say. He would have been, no, we
hang
can't
on.
open it because we can't manage it, blah, blah, blah.
Well, aren't we going to we're going to proclaim whether it's positive or negative, aren't we?
Oh, yeah, sorry, I completely forgot. Yes.
Completely forgot the entire
I'm not doing
purpose
what
of
I'm supposed
this
to. Yeah,
of this
sorry.
podcast.
Yeah, good. You remind me. It's negative
So,
because it's saying his tactical ideas had crystallized in the South African War of 1899, which
yeah,
suggests
yeah.
that he was not a skilled
So
military commander.
no, that's quite funny. It's sort of a dry, ironic statement, but you could miss it if you were stressed in the exam.
Yeah, yeah, yeah.
That last line might look like he's got tactical ideas, which is good, but
Yes,
this is 1899.
yes.
This is not 1930, 1941,
Yeah,
you know.
yeah. And we'll deal with
Um,
Wavell and later on. Yep, go on. And then C for you.
so yeah, negative. Okay, so source C, we have a senior commander comments on Churchill's strategy. Churchill thinks one thing at one moment and another at another moment. At times, the war may be won by bombing and all must be sacrificed to it. At others, it becomes essential for us to bleed ourselves dry on the continent because Russia is doing the same. At others, our main effort must be in the Mediterranean, directed against Italy or the Balkans, alternatively, with sporadic desires to invade Norway. More often, he wants to carry out all operations simultaneously, irrespective of shortages of shipping. And that is Field Marshal Lord Allenbrook, diary, the 24th of May, 1943. And that is clearly negative.
Mm-hmm.
Okay.
Yeah,
And
where's
that leaves source D.
well, where's your language?
Oh yes, I need to get my link. Oh, nice one.
We're
You got
falling
me back.
apart.
You got me back. I know we've completely gone off the rails.
Mhm.
Um, I think you could. I think one Churchill thinks one thing at one moment and another at another moment.
Yeah, yes.
You could also quote the last sentence. More often, he wants to carry out all operations simultaneously, irrespective of shortages of
I
shipping.
think the key capital letter on all as well. All.
Yes, yes, yes. Or
Leave me
some
alone.
frustration there.
Yeah, Alan Brooke had a hard time in the wars. Didn't get sacked though, unlike all the other ones. So which is quite impressive. One of Churchill's secretaries, I source D then, one of Churchill's secretaries comments on his military understanding. I have the clearest possible recollection of General Ismay talking to me about a meeting of the Chiefs of Staff Committee, at which they got completely stuck and admitted they had not known what was the right course to pursue. So, on a purely military matter, they had come to Churchill for his advice. He introduced some further facts into the equation that had escaped their attention, and the solution became obvious. The point of the story is one of the reasons for the success of the working relationship between Churchill and the chiefs of staff was their deep respect, even on the frequent occasions when they disagreed with him, for his military talents, if not genius. Yeah, so I think this one supports
That's
the fact he was a military genius, and the key was
subjective.
the last
Yeah,
line for his military talents, if not genius, and talks about the success of the working relationship as well. So I think all of these
yeah.
things point to it being positive that he was a strategic military genius.
Yes. Okay. Well, it's
Yeah.
positive, definitely positive.
Cool. So we have to rank them in, and I assume B would have been positive as well, because if it's Churchill explaining it, I'm guessing it's him. Churchill's never going to say he sucks, is he? 1942. So yeah, so that one would have been positive. We can kind of guess what it would say. We can kind of deal with. I'm going to have a crack at dealing with source B, even though it's not there, because I pretty much reckon it's going to be him defending the Mediterranean strategy and that they can't go into the Western Front because they would lose too many people. That's my theory behind
Yeah.
that one, and therefore it would be
Yeah.
supporting the fact that he's a military genius. Um, and then
But
so I'm going to go with most supportive is probably D, is D. Then I reckon it would have been B if B is there. And then I think C and A. What do you reckon?
A is the most negative.
Yes.
I think it's arguable between A and C.
Yeah.
Yeah. I think they're both sort of equally negative. So you
We
could
have
you
to
could
we have
argue
to
one or
rank
the
them
other.
though. Yeah, but
Uh,
if you were gonna, because in the exam
if I was going to do it, if I was going to do it, I would say, yeah, source C and then source A would be the
yeah,
most negative.
that's how I would do it. Like, but I think you've got some leeway as long as you're putting them on the right side of the yes or no. I think you've got a little bit of more, you know,
Yeah,
a little bit of
I think
leeway.
so.
Whereas
I
one
think
of my
so.
students had a real big problem in the summer exam because they said all the sources supported it and they clearly didn't. Like there was
Oh no,
it was clearly
no.
two
But
of
they're not
them.
going to do that anyway. That's a bad guess.
No, but then
There's
even
going
then,
to be there's going to be a couple that I mean,
I've had one where it was three
yeah,
yeses and one yes no, so there was no out and out no. You know what I mean? So it can happen. You can't be saying you know you've got to be careful because they could do one where all four agree.
yeah, yeah.
See if
Okay,
you see if they catch you out. OCR can do anything they like. So I don't like, you know, it's always dangerous to be like, oh, they must have one of each. They don't. It's no, there's no requirement in the exam to have it. It's
right,
probably likely, but and if
right.
you think they're all on one side, you probably wanna like have another
Have a
look.
quick. Yeah, I think so. All right.
Like, you have to back
So
yourself.
shall we? Let's
Yeah,
start with. Do you want to start with D and then I'll do
yeah.
the
I'll
next
do
one?
D. I'll do D and A, and you can do C then. And I'll do B. I'll randomly do B on what I think it is. So okay, where are we looking at? Accuracy. Did Churchill come up with military solutions? Sometimes because he was quite good. I don't want to cannibalize source A a little bit, but obviously he supported a lot of new technology like tanks usage in World War One, modern technology, radar, and other stuff. So he was able to strategically strategies were like Sorsay suggests a little bit trapped in the past because he believed in like full on attack because he was his military like background was brought in obviously the Empire's wars when Britain was militarily and technologically far superior to the colonies it was overrunning. So it wasn't used to fighting war against, you know, an enemy that was at least technologically equal to it, if not superior to it. So um he they said the frequent occasions when they disagree with him, so they're saying they still respected him. I think they did, but I don't think they respected him on his military tactics, as you can see. I mean, source C contradicts this. Alan Brooks is
Yeah,
clearly saying that he wasn't strategically accurate. I think he was
yeah,
better at like morale and boosting, like, you know, leadership, like overall, um,
yeah. I mean,
motivation and that kind of stuff than he
it's
was on as a tactical genius.
yeah, it's complicated because there's different levels going on. There's the political aspect, which of
Yeah,
course Churchill's in charge of.
yeah,
There are political reasons that you might adopt one strategy over another,
yeah.
and that might not be clear to the military heads.
That's true. This is not. This is
So politics and strategy are somewhat different,
yeah.
although they're very much connected.
Yeah, I mean, this is Churchill's
So,
secretary, so he's
look,
out
I
there.
think, yeah,
The fact is, I mean, it's quite vague, isn't it? There was a time they got completely stuck. What time? And he gave them the information. This is so vague that it feels to
yeah,
me, you know, how can we judge if it's completely accurate when we don't even know what he's talking about?
yeah,
And this probably comes from the provenance. I think it's too vague. I think it's not inaccurate. It's a little bit inaccurate because, well, there were, I mean, it's so vague. There were moments where they agreed. There were moments where they disagreed. Fine, that's all there. Was he a genius tactically? No one seems to suggest so. None of the other generals on this page and sort of C or A suggest that. Um, don't think anyone has Churchill down as a military tactical genius.
I think Churchill was. I don't know. I'm not sure that he was such a buff old traditionalist. I think he was creative and full of ideas. I actually think Source
Yeah, yeah.
C.
On
I think
technology,
Source C.
technology.
yeah, source C suggests that he's bursting with ideas. The problem is that there's just too many of them to manage.
But he also,
Um,
Lipley's on him, Narvik's on him. You know what I
yeah,
mean? He was Lord of the Admiralty. He's like, when he's actually run stuff, they've all been pretty disastrous. And then Provenance-wise, Churchill's secretary, so he would have known stuff, but he's also likely to defend him. But he's also having a conversation in 1982, which is probably why it's so vague. It's like, I don't think you'd remember 40 years later what the exact content of the
no,
conversation you want to
Uh,
bring up is. So in terms of reliability, this is pretty unreliable.
no, and there is a cult of Churchill, I think.
Yeah, I mean, yeah, yeah. At
So
this point, it's hard to go out and say, you know what, yeah, I mean, even I told you, even Churchill War Rooms, which is the Imperial War Museum owns it, so it should it should be historically accurate, but it's not. Um, yeah. What do you agree?
okay,
Some
I agree. Yeah,
too
I agree.
vague to be accurate to really judge.
Yes, I think it's unreliable.
Yeah, definitely unreliable. Do you want to take on source? I'll do source B just randomly because I think what it would be. So I would assume it's him saying they can't open up the front, which is possibly true at that point in time because that is before the Russians. When did the Soviets come in?
Oh, was it the end of
I
1942?
think it's the middle, isn't it?
Middle of
Yeah, I think it's
1942?
after Opal there.
I'm guessing. Sorry.
Yeah, I also need to check when they came in. June. Yes, this is 2 months before the Soviets are invaded. So in terms of accuracy, even though we don't have the source, I'm assuming it's saying they can't do it, and they probably can't without the Soviets having the Eastern Front. I don't
Yeah.
think the Americans weren't fully geared up in war. So I would assume this would be fairly accurate, whatever the hell he's saying about it. In terms of reliability, it would be well, it's a book published after the 5 years after the war, so therefore it's going to be less reliable because again, it's 1 year before he comes into power, and he's going to want to suggest that his Mediterranean tactics and that were accurate. In terms
Yeah,
of,
he'll give
I
a
mean, we're flying blind here
positive
because we can't
spin.
see the source, but I'm guessing that's what it deals with. So I would say it probably wouldn't be our most reliable, accurate source, probably. Source C. Do you want to take source C?
Source C. Okay, so is how accurate is it? Um, I think that I'm inclined to say it is accurate. I
Yeah,
think Churchill had a frustratingly large amount of ideas about how to
yeah,
carry on things. And sure, um, for a military man, it could have been probably was a headache. So I think that it's accurate.
yeah.
Um,
I don't know about his decision to invade Norway. I'd have thought Narvik would have put him off. Bombing's obviously referring to Dresden campaign, bombing in
yeah,
German cities. Um, don't think he was really keen to go into bleeding in the continent the same way as Russia. He didn't want to open the Western Front. It was
it
more
might have been an idea that he suggested though at some
could
point.
be. I feel like it's more an American idea, and whether whoever got it through Churchill, FDR. But
Yeah,
Mediterranean, Italy, Balkans was definitely in Churchill's.
yeah.
Yeah,
And for provenance, I think it's fairly reliable.
yeah.
Um,
Why?
it's a diary.
Yeah,
It's contemporaneous,
yeah,
and it's from someone, a senior commander who obviously would have been, embedded in uh, the strategy of the British High Command. So I think that yes, I would say it's quite reliable.
yeah, yeah. He's a senior commander. He would have done it. I'm just wondering what was. Yeah, so it was obviously before the Tehran conference they decided to switch over onto the other side to do stuff. Alan Brooke would know exactly what he's doing. It's a diary. It's not written for publication. He's the senior commander. He would have known all about Churchill's because he would have been the one. He was frustrated with Churchill during the war, and he would have
Yeah.
had accuracy with it. So I would say, yeah, that's pretty reliable and pretty accurate. Alan Brooke.
Okay, and then we have source A.
Yeah, so I'll deal with source A. In terms of accuracy, um, it's true that he did believe tactically, I would say it's accurate. His tactical ideas were from the Boer War era because he definitely believed in aggressive generals. That's why he replaced our man Wavell here.
Yeah,
And
so Weigel was now, if my memory serves me correctly, it was in North Africa,
yeah,
wasn't
he got
it? It
fired.
was Operation Torch,
You might have
and
better detail of the individual operations.
and this is
Yeah,
against Rommel.
yeah. He replaced
Um,
Montgomery, didn't he?
And what was Wavell doing? He just wasn't going fast enough,
Yeah, it wasn't being aggressive, wasn't attacking.
wasn't
Someone
aggressive enough.
charge. They
Yeah.
needed to,
So hence this disagreement, right? Hence Wavell suggesting that it's a
yeah,
it's a
yeah,
football war
yeah. Because
tactic.
he's just like get in there like a cavalry charge, like run across and do it. Like, and you're up against a highly skilled German tank commander. It's not the same. And obviously,
But yeah, I just think, sorry, in terms of, I don't mean to jump in, but in terms of the accuracy, you've got to remember, like Churchill pioneer was part of the first tank plants in the First World War.
oh yeah,
I don't think that Churchill was somehow stodgily wedded to 19th century ideas of warfare. There's nothing.
no.
Yeah,
I think tactically he was out. Tactically, his ideas were old-fashioned, but his adoption of technology was not. You know what I mean? I think that's where it's unfair to critique him. He was one of the leading proponents of adopting new technology
yeah,
into the warfield.
yeah, yeah.
On technology, he
Good.
was very strong, but tactically and strategically, I mean, the Mediterranean strategy, while it protected the Suez Canal, upset FDR and Stalin as well.
Right.
So,
Um,
in terms of provenance, this is less reliable because it's a letter from Wavell 5 years after the war ended, and possibly designed. I don't know if he's writing the letter too. That would be interesting because is it designed to embarrass Churchill before he's aiming to become prime minister in 51? Because I
right.
assume Wavell the unreliability for Wavell is he was fired by Churchill. So
That's
he's
right.
unlikely to, he might, there's a risk that he might retain some bitterness at being fired, which is going to make
Right.
the reliability of his source less reliable because he's obviously probably going to have some problem with Churchill over what happened.
Right.
So I would say somewhat accurate, or at least partially accurate, not completely accurate though, and a bit unfair and pretty unreliable.
Yeah. Okay. I
So if
think
we're
so.
looking at the conclusion, the only source we've got that's any use is
Source
source
C.
C. I assume B would have had some use. And I think it would have been that, but we don't know what or how. But because I think in that time period, so but with the three sources we've got, source C being our most accurate, we can dismiss source D as unreliable. Source A and D are unreliable. So source C suggests that he's very hit and miss with his strategic elements, and that I would suggest it suggests that he was not a skilled military advisor and strategist.
Yeah. Yeah. Just by the sources that are available to us and their reliability, I think that would be the
Yeah,
conclusion.
yeah. I think that that would
Conclusion.
be the case that he upset different people, and the only people that are supporting him are very vague with their praise. They can't come up with a single specific example of when he did something. From our own knowledge as well, he was strategy and military skills were not his strong suit. It was like
Right.
motivation and leadership. He was very strong at those, and
Apparently, he was a bit of a micromanager, or he liked to dabble a bit,
yeah, but didn't they
I
just
think.
ignore him?
Did you know that, so did you know this, that Churchill insisted on going on one of the ships to the D-Day landing to see it?
Oh no, I didn't know that. Yeah.
Yeah, he
I
was
was thinking
convinced
when
him
he went to
not
see
to.
Roosevelt in the middle of the Pacific, I was like, if the Germans had known that and they torpedoed that boat,
Yeah, and Churchill actually he did a lot of risky flights too to different places
yeah,
to
yeah,
meet people
yeah,
and
his energy was strong. His morale, yeah, he was the right
yeah.
man for that role. But I think Alan Brooke was frustrated because Alan Brooke was just like, get out of my.
Well, right, sometimes too much energy can be a bit of a problem
Well,
too.
Alan Brooke had to deal with him. But the fact that Alan Brooke didn't get fired, despite clearly being frustrated with him all the way through. Yeah.
Yeah, but that's not uncommon either, James. That
No.
uh,
And
the
Montgomery
military
was
men
successful in North America. I think
have arguments with the political class. So
Churchill's greatest strength, and I think both we'll look at it next week when we look at the 1951 to 1964. I think Churchill's greatest strength, or one of his greatest strengths, was he was really good at identifying good people for the roles.
hmm.
You know what I mean? He put good. When is he appointing someone not good? You know what I mean? Because he had
Hmm.
Rab Butler running his economic policies. He had like Macmillan building houses on the side part. He had Eden on his farm. He had, he had good people. And when in the war, he had Attlee running the domestic show, and Attlee was, you know what I mean? He very much put good people in good places. So I think his judgment on that was pretty good. Which is, if, as a leader, that's what you want most. It's not your talents; it's your ability to maximize the talents of the people around you.
Right, right.
I think that's what makes him a good leader, but like, quite crap at all the minor elements of some of these things. But as an overall leader, he's pretty useful.
Well, I think that's a wrap.
Yeah, I think we've done enough of the Churchills. I'll see if anyone else, if they want any other ones, we can do them later, but we'll leave them for now. So next week we can do chapter 4, the essay packs, the 51 election up to 64 election, those ones.
Brilliant.
All right, cool. I'll see. Well, hung up on this one. Wait a second. Where's the button?